And our first guest is Yee Jee Tso, and closely followed by the wonderful Daphne Ashbrook from the TV movie. Hi guys! Well, first on, how about that then, eh? Kick off, start with a bang.
Yeah.
Great, love it, love it. Oh dear.
Yeah, where's my phone? Pictures of you guys.
How was your flight? Because I mean, it's brilliant that you've come to see us. Us mere little Doctor Who fan club. You know, it's lovely. So how was the flight and everything else like that?
You go
Just making
first.
sure you're all right, being looked after.
Yeah, it was all right. I usually try to get a little bit of sleep, and I didn't get much, but I had a few little naps here and there.
In-flight movie?
In-flight movies,
Excellent,
yeah. I watched
like
a couple
it.
movies, and
Good.
it was smooth. It wasn't a lot of turbulence, which is really good for me because I get a little bit motion sickness or whatever.
dear.
So yeah, I mean I don't throw up or anything, but it's just you feel awful if you're the kind of person that gets motion sickness. It's just this terrible feeling.
horrible feeling, yeah.
It was not very turbulent, so that's
Good.
great. Yeah.
And Daphne, all right? Excellent.
I got to tell you, I mean, I've heard one other kind of perspective on Norwegian air, but if you get a chance, I got to tell you, it was brilliant.
Yeah?
Yes. The seats were all big, and there wasn't anybody sitting in front of me. There was just like a wall, and I had room to stretch out, and then nobody sat next to me on this side.
Marvelous.
So I got the window. I mean, yeah, they fed us twice, and I got to see a couple films. Watched Brooklyn. Have you seen Brooklyn?
No, I haven't.
It's really, really
Yeah.
good, but we started to land just as we got to the end. So I have to go home and watch it again so that I can find out what happened. But yeah, no, it was wonderful. And we were here in like 9 hours. Usually it's a 12-hour flight. So
Is it a headwind or tailwind?
they
against
do,
you?
they go, I guess they're above everything.
Yeah,
They're
yeah.
really high, yeah.
There you go, guys.
Yeah, Norwegian
Airways,
Air, who'd have thunk?
as recommended by Daphne. Just mention that.
I know, I should be
Our friend
getting
of
paid.
Daphne.
I know.
Getting
You
up
need to
there.
go and talk to Norwegian Air.
Yeah.
Look,
That's great.
I'm selling you.
We're 2016 now, aren't we? So,
Yeah.
20 years ago,
Yeah.
1996, when I was all that high. I remember sitting in BAFTA, because I got a ticket for that night, and I watched this thing, and I remember sitting in the taxi on the way back to the station, and I had the biggest smile on my face for the whole of the journey. It was just, Doctor Who was back. I don't know how many people were around at that time, and it was just, we've done it. We've got Doctor Who back, and it was just marvellous. So, were you aware of Doctor Who before, the movie? Because it had been off our screens for, about 6, 7 years by that time. And obviously in America, it had been big with Tom Baker and everything like that. But had it kind of died a little death and... what
You're
were your
speaking of
memories?
America, yeah. There was the underground. I mean, there were the tried and true people who'd picked up on it, early on through other means, because we did not. It was not. It's not like we had a BBC America as we do now.
Yeah.
If we did, I don't think it was showing that. You know what I mean? So. So there were the diehards, but as far as the expansive fan base now, that didn't happen until Matt Smith came along,
Right.
and it started up again. And so even many Americans had not seen the film until 2011, really, because they didn't release it in the States until then. There was a contractual obligation to have rerun the film once on TV before they were able to release it then, and they never did rerun it. So the only people who saw it in America really were the people that watched it when it aired and taped it on their VCRs, And so very few people saw it, and hence Regenerate, which is a thing I did on a nutshell version, is we did an online group watch with everybody around the world, and I'm not even kidding, 84 countries participated, thousands of people participated, and we all did a countdown, and Yee Jee, we did a chat over the film. So it was me and Gary Russell, you probably know him.
Yeah, we know
And he was in Cardiff, and Ken Deep, who you may not know, but who is a huge Doctor Who fan in America, diehard. He was in New York. Yee Jee was in Vancouver and I was in LA, and we were all doing a chat and watching the movie 10, 9, 8, boom, which is appropriate for the film since we do a countdown in the film too. We all watched it, and it was just really out of my going, I just got to get people to see this, especially the Americans who haven't. And so yeah, that's what we did.
Yeah. And in Canada, were you residing in Canada when?
Yeah, I was in Vancouver.
What was Doctor Who kind of? What was the kind of profile of Doctor Who in Canada at that time?
Similar. It was. I wouldn't say it was like a. I wouldn't say it was a cult thing necessarily. They had it. They had it on our version of PBS. It was like the public channel, and I used to watch it. For example, I had it. I was. What they call a latchkey kid, which is like my parents were at work and I took the bus home from school and I kind of like sat at home and I just had the television on for like 8 hours or something like that. Pretty much every day after school I'd be doing my homework or playing with something and the TV would be on.
Yeah.
And one of the things that would come on, of course, would be Doctor Who.
Yeah.
And so I remember the theme song. I remember Tom Baker with the hat and the scarf and everything. But I can't remember the plot lines of anything that I saw in that. It was just like thousands of hours of television that just went in one ear and out the other. But I do remember the show from that. So I knew what it was when we started filming.
Yeah.
But I guess I didn't really have any idea of what it fully was.
Right.
Yeah, like what it meant.
And what was the audition process like for you both? And was it explained to you at the start that Doctor Who is this big and possibly your lives are going to change and this is what we've got plans for?
Not to me. No. That wasn't until we got the job, or at least when I got the job, and Sylvester and Paul and Philip Siegel primarily were trying to educate me about what I was now becoming a part of and what I would probably be looking forward to. Still didn't understand that and didn't start really doing conventions until 2004-ish. And then I think I'd done one prior to that, and I did one panel and left and was scared and didn't know it. I was like, and so that experience. But it wasn't until we were involved in the 50th anniversary that everything really kind of came home.
Yeah.
I was brought to tears, and I wasn't the only one. I don't know about you, but there were several other companions that we were all sitting in the room looking at each other. Yeah. And it was like, oh my God, generations of
dozens of people.
Great faces and actors and people, and we're all here together. And it was like every living companion was probably in that room.
It was amazing.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
So that is when, for me, and then, the doctors came in. And they were all there. Yeah. And then we all got to sit and watch that episode where Tom Baker came in at the end. Yeah, it was just ridiculous. I mean, the whole night was just like fairy tale. And I'm not a fan, you guys. I mean, I am now, but I wasn't to begin with. And so this was, I became an actual fan that night, I think. That was when I was just like, I was crying like other people, and
it was a night.
It was a
night. It was incredible.
It was really incredible.
It was an amazing thing.
So
she wipes a tear.
I was crying like that. It was awful. Well, it was brilliant, but it was, oh my God. So with the audition, was it a long audition process or was it straightforward? How did your agent put you up for the part?
Yes, it was just like a normal gig, I had no idea. Nobody said anything to me. Here's the script. I read it and went, oh, that's fun. That regeneration thing's cool. I had no idea. So, and then I auditioned. It was the easiest thing. I auditioned the first time. I got a call back. I auditioned again, and then I got the part. It wasn't like a long, drawn-out nightmare at all.
And
for me.
Same for you?
I have a story about the audition that ties into something that happened on set, but it's in this book that I've just released or whatever. And if someone was able to go to Matt just over here in the if anybody is available to grab the book from Matt West of Milk Publishing. I don't know if there's anybody around that.
Do you have a book with you?
No. Well, no, stupidly I did not bring it. I don't understand what I was thinking, but if you guys were interested and someone could do that, I would read the chapter to you guys if you wanted to.
Explain what the book is. Explain what the book is.
So this book is I back then there was no ban on photography like on set like there is now. Nowadays when you're filming, they don't let you take pictures. You have to sign your life away, NDAs and all this kind of stuff because they don't want people like tweeting out the whole everything before it goes. So, but back then there was nothing like that. So I had my Nikon FE, my little SLR, my film camera, and I would just go around and take pictures on set. And I had, and Glenn McPherson, the DOP, had this like amazing, and the sets were made, the Gothic cathedral thing, and they had like torches and light streaming in through these arched windows and the whole thing. I mean, it was amazing.
Gorgeous.
So I couldn't help but take photos. You had to take a photo. Awesome. Thank you. You are a star. Thank this man. Yay!
It's gonna be thanked.
Gothic cathedral style. So anyway, I mean, I didn't need any photographic skill to be able to take some pretty neat photos. Like, this is probably one of my favorite photos in the whole book. You guys, I don't know if you can see it from there, but it's
Oh my God.
like that
the
seal
big
of Rassilon thing, and the anyway, you'll see it later on.
Buy the
I'll
book
show you.
and have a look.
Yeah, but they so those photos were lost. I didn't know what happened to them. They were just, I had moved around several times, and I didn't know what happened to them. But a couple of years ago, 2 years, 1.5, 2 years ago, my wife was clearing out the stuff in our garage, the garage of the house that I live in now. And it just so happens that we had a bunch of boxes from my mom from when she moved to Toronto. She ended up with a bunch of boxes that ended up in storage, and then we put them in our garage when we moved into our house. And lo and behold,
Oh my God.
there's this box with the negatives of those pictures that I took. And along with that were the original scripts, location schedule, one-line schedule, day out of days, all these production documents that were like in the original state with the colored paper for each of the
Yep.
different versions of the, there was the second version, the third version, they all had their different color-coded things. And I was like, I think there's going to be a couple Doctor Who fans that's going to want to see this stuff. And Daphne at a convention just previous to that had seen me take photos, because I've continued to do photos, and I actually used to do architectural photography.
It's great photography.
For contractors and stuff. I do mostly still stuff. And since she had mentioned to me, like, you should put out a photo book, I was like, okay, I'm going to go around and take some photos of these locations as they are now, and do a kind of like then and now photographic kind of like journal. And I'm going to do some narratives and interview Daphne, and Sylvester's in there as well. I did an interview with Sylvester. And my wife was all for it, because usually I work from home. I work for a software company, and I'm sitting in front of the computer most of the time, unless I'm doing something like this or another acting gig. And she was like, "This will get you out of the house. Go take photos.
Please
Go
go.
take photos." So it was roaming around the city and taking photos of these places, and then thinking about them and thinking about stories from when we were at these locations. And so I'll read you this thing about the audition. Or should we do it at the end? I don't know. Is it?
Do it now.
Okay.
I love a story.
All right. So here's the story.
You're on a roll.
So
Come
are
on.
you sitting comfortably?
I think it was the thing about the ambulance. Okay, so for Chang Lee, the ambulance ride with Bruce, the paramedic, was transformative, whisking him away to a different life. For the Master, the ambulance delivered a host body and therefore served as a vehicle of transformation. Dr. Grace Holloway was also transformed through exposure to the Master's venom during her ride in the ambulance. The day we shot the first ambulance scene was transformative for me also as an actor. But before delving into that, let's first do a bit of time travel 10 months ahead of that day to the Visions Doctor Who convention in Chicago. I was on a panel with producer Philip Siegel when someone in the audience asked, "How did you decide to cast Yee Jee Tso as Chang Lee?" And hopefully Philip will forgive me for paraphrasing, but his response was something very much like the following. We wanted Chang Lee to have this edgy, almost aloof kind of quality. We held auditions for the role, and in the last round, so there was like several rounds of auditions, and I actually know the guy that was second up with me. There was two of us that were going in for this last round. Last round, we had everyone in attendance, myself, director Jeffrey Sachs, and the executives from the network. It was Yee Jee's turn to audition, and he wasn't anywhere to be found. We waited for an hour before he finally showed up. And he just did his thing with a devil-may-care attitude like nothing was amiss. And we thought, this guy really doesn't care about anything, does he? It's exactly what we're looking for. So if you ask anyone involved in film and television casting, they will tell you that an actor arriving late to an audition is an egregious crime, surpassed only by arriving late for a call to set, right?
Yeah.
Okay, as it happened, the ambulance scene was shot in the studio at 8651 East Lake Drive in Burnaby, a municipality adjacent to Vancouver, in the exact same location of that fateful audition. Truth be told, driving down the low-heat highway in busy traffic to get to the studio was a bit of a chore for me, and one for which I was very poor at allocating the required amount of time. Thus, I was late to set that day, Wednesday, January 31st, 1996. When I arrived, All the crew, including the director and Eric Roberts, had been waiting 10 minutes for me to arrive.
10.
To participate in the blocking of the scene. 10 minutes might not seem like a long time, but in film and television industry, as you probably know, more acutely than any other industry, time is money. And on this production, with a relatively hefty budget compared with other made-for-TV movies, time equated to money at the rate of very roughly, adjusted for inflation, $35,000 an hour. And I had foolishly wasted both time and money that day. But regardless, it was not the finances I was thinking of at that moment when I walked onto set. It was the look on Jeffrey Sachs's face. That searing look of sadness, hurt, and confusion that a parent might give their child when the little one does something so egregiously incongruent with the parent's conception of the child's good nature that it elicits not anger, but pure, absolute disappointment. And that is all I could think about at that time, and something I'll remember as long as my memory serves me. I've never been late since for another call to set.
Wow.
I got chills. I had chills.
So, since you asked about the audition process, that's how I got
So
cast.
be an hour late for your
Yes, that's right. No, I really don't recommend doing that. I mean, as luck would have it, it worked out, but I would not recommend doing that.
It was Paul McGann's one and only, unfortunately, Doctor Who outing on screen until the 50th. Was he very nervous? Was he, here we go kind of thing? Because obviously he was signed, I believe he was signed up to do more.
He does, I think, a 7-year contract or something.
So what was his feeling? Do you kind of think I'm on the brink of something, or?
I think he was excited. I think there was a certain amount of excitement. I don't know that he was nervous about it, because I think he probably worked out those demons already. He'd been approached for a good solid year, as far as I know, them trying to talk him into saying yes, please say yes. Please be on top. And finally, okay. And so by that time, he had already been, when you do a pilot and you're going to be the person or one of the people that is going to be continuing on if they do get picked up, you've already gone through a contract. Your agent has worked, eked out every single part of the deal, how much you're going to get paid, how many years your life will be theirs, everything, your billing, everything, your accommodations. And he would have to have relocated, obviously, and he had 2 small children and a wife, and so they were already looking at schools. They were preparing in that way, So they were already the train was already moving down the track, and so I think he was excited about it, and I think that he was ready to start shooting. I think he also has a story that I can't repeat, other than to say the overall thing was his agent at the time was also a Doctor Who actor, and she showed up at the location at some point. I think he had dinner with her or something, and a person came up to her and went, "You are a Doctor Who!" And then he just looked at her, and she was like, "See, this is it. This is what you're gonna." And so so he was figuring it out too. But he's a very there's a zen-y kind of quality to his work, which was great for me, because I'm a little out there and slightly intimidated by the material. I'm not gonna lie, I don't get a lot of comic parts, and there were a lot of challenging moments in the script that I was looking forward to. I loved it. It was so much fun. And so he was, grounding. That's, I think, the best I can say is that there was a grounding kind of quality to him. He was great.
And can you remember the first day of filming? What was the first scene that both of you kind of filmed?
What did you shoot first?
Yeah, what did you shoot first?
My establishing was at the, I think it was at,
He's got to look in the book.
Yeah, I forget.
Because he can't remember what's
I think
in the
it was.
book.
I know. Because I referenced the location schedule when I was in here. It was at the BC. It was at the. I think it was the BC Pavilion. It was that where they did the time, the beryllium clock stuff.
Oh right.
Oh my God! Really?
Gosh.
Yeah, that was the first day
how
on
weird.
set.
Because that's towards the end of the film.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think they shot that first up,
Right.
or it was second up after your. Maybe I'm wrong.
Look at the book.
Yeah, he'll figure it out.
I'll figure it out when you guys get it. But I think it was something like that, where I'm almost certain, because that's when I first met Eric Roberts, actually. So that I think it was at that location, and because your stuff in the condo was first.
Yep.
Yeah.
We shot the condo first,
Right,
which
there's
was
Pacino bit
great.
in the mirror and the window. and
The
that
window
kind of
stuff,
yeah.
we had 3 days of shoot there, I believe. And we had 3 days of rehearsal
Nice.
there.
That's a luxury.
So, oh my God.
Yeah.
And so we were ready for that stuff. And that sequence tends to be my favorite. It just looks so pretty and it was fun. And
It's really
it was
sweet.
just a solid kind of,
Really
I
sweet.
liked it, yeah.
Yeah.
So that was first, and that's where we met. Now, see, that's what's weird, because I met Eric there. When he shows up with the ambulance, the very first time I met him was when he arrives at that door. And I know that we'd been shooting for 3 weeks prior to the condos, prior to meeting him. We had 3 weeks of shooting, am I wrong? Under our belts
They might have
before he
gone
showed
back there
up.
to do a little one-off or something like that.
They may have, they
Yeah.
may have.
But on
Because I feel
the
like-
location schedule, the Grace stuff was the condo stuff was
first,
out.
yeah. And that place is still owned by the same people. We went back in 2010.
Yeah.
He showed us how to get her back around. We went back around. Sylv, you and me, we all went, and a whole group of other people, but we went back to the condo, and the same people were living there, and they let us come
It was wild.
in. We like, hello,
Oh my God,
and they're like,
fancy
oh, come in. And they had pictures of like when we were there with them. It was so cool.
That's lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is
And one of
so
those photos made it into your book.
Yeah, yes, I have
got a
that
book?
photo. As a
Yes.
matter of fact,
You got a book?
I do have a book. You didn't know I have a book? Stop it! Oh my God. God, what's it called? I've forgotten. Oh dear God, huh? Dead Woman Laughing. Which is actually, quick story. I'm on the cloister room floor, I'm dead. And it's towards the end of the shoot, so I'm a little punch drunk. We've been shooting nights for a month and a half.
Yeah.
And I am trying to be dead, and I start to laugh, and I can't stop laughing. It's like, in church, when you're laughing. And I was really kind of scared. I didn't want to let the crew down because, time is money.
Yeah.
And I just kept laughing, and then finally blurted out, Dead Woman Laughing, and Paul turned to me and said, "That's the title of your book."
Nice.
And I remembered this. And so 15 years later, someone said, "You should write a book, blah, 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 blah." And I was like, I got the title. And so then I started to look at my career, and I realized as an actor, I've died a whole bunch of times, including Doctor Who, and I've killed people a lot. And I've also almost died a lot of times in my personal life, which I thought this was normal. I thought everybody went through this stuff, but I think that's not normal. Anyway, I made a list. And then I just went down my IMDb page, and I saw, I'd killed somebody there, and killed somebody there. And I've never killed anybody the same way twice, which is interesting. I've never died the same way twice. So this is really cool. Yeah. So that's my book. It's meant to make you laugh.
I'm sure it would. With Sylvester, he was handing over.
Yeah.
Was he relieved because he'd been kind of holding the mantle of the Doctor all the time? It had been off screen.
Yep.
Really, he was still to us. He was
The
still
Doctor.
the Doctor.
Yep.
And do you think that it was a kind of a relief to him to finally say, "Well, there's the baton, Paul. It's yours now"?
Do you want to take
Or was
it?
he sad to?
I think that it was probably a bit of both, wasn't
Yeah.
it? Like, I don't know if I've actually had that conversation with you.
I've heard him
You?
talk about it,
Yeah.
actually.
Okay.
I think there was a certain amount of both.
Yeah.
It's a bittersweet kind of thing. But I think he was also really glad that they invited him to be
In it.
in it.
Yeah.
And to hand the baton. Paul didn't get that
No.
courtesy.
No.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you something from an American perspective and somebody who didn't know anything about Doctor Who, my favorite part was the regeneration. That was what hooked me. I mean, for a sci-fi person, and I consider myself one, that was what made me go, this is really weird and cool. I like that. And then they shot it so well. It was
Yeah.
so beautiful. And of course, Sylvester stole my heart almost immediately.
He's amazing.
And adorable. And they were doing a documentary of that period of his life during the shoot. So there was a camera crew following him around, And yes, because I know there were 3 weeks before we met Eric, because he was involved in those weeks of shoot.
Mm-hmm.
So
well, because Sylvester was there for the Chinatown stuff, and for the, like there was a bunch of stuff that was going on. I met Eric quite a bit earlier than you did. Probably.
Yes, you did.
So I think if you met Eric for the first time at Grace's condo, we probably went back as a second unit or something to just shoot that one little bit.
You know who'd remember that was Jeffrey.
Yeah.
Too bad Jeffrey's not here. But yeah, so I think it was a little bit of both, and I think Paul was sensitive to it, and I think that they had chats about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was definitely a human moment and an interesting time, because that would have made him the longest running doctor ever.
Yeah.
Said he had 7 years off air.
Yeah, yeah.
But we love him.
We do.
And I'm sorry I killed him. I didn't mean to.
I was going to say, you're a very dodgy doctor.
I know it. I killed him, and then I hit the new doctor on the head. But then I saved his life.
You did. So
Yeah.
I saved the world.
You did.
Yes, you did.
Just a little bit.
Yeah. So Grace really was.
She got around. She was
got
busy.
around. She was a very. She was probably one of the first kind of professional ladies who were companions. She was a proper person in her own right.
Right.
A doctor, no less.
Yeah.
A doctor,
I mean,
too,
I know we had kind of Liz Shaw in the 70s with John Pertwee and stuff like that, but unfortunately, again, they kind of let her slip into the archetypal scream of I've kind of sprained my ankle doctor kind of thing. But Grace seemed to be quite obviously an intelligent lady, very intelligent lady, and also somebody who kind of, apart from a little wobble, she took most things in her stride. And thought, this is. And was that something that you wanted to bring to the part, or was it something that was already there for you to?
It was written
and run.
Matthew wrote it, so I had to be true to as best as I could to what he wrote. As far as gravitas and that kind of thing, I suppose that's what you bring to it. I mean, you can play things a lot of different ways, but I'm kind of an instinct actor. I'm not too much in my head, so I think I just sort of approached it as honestly as I could. And ultimately, for me, like I said, the challenging part was that humor and that quick and having, it's like playing tennis or ping pong, and Paul was always there hitting the ball right back, and we were in it together. And so it was just the best time ever. It was the best way to work. It's like rarely do you get to experience that on film. On stage maybe, but not so much on film. Not in America anyway. Here maybe. You guys have it all.
We're lucky. We're very lucky.
Yeah.
You had a lot of scenes with Eric. Who played the master. There's kind of lots of stories about Eric and things like that. But how did you find playing against him?
Tell us about those stories. I know what those stories are.
I've heard some of those stories, and I know that people have opinions about working with Eric. I have probably a slightly different one because, like I say, I met him for the first time at that Beryllium Clock location, and I was intimidated at first. There was actually a little interaction where I was slightly confused and very intimidated because he said something to me. I can't remember the details of it, but it was like the interaction didn't go the way I really thought it was going to happen, and I was kind of like, what? I was sort of thrown off.
You mean personally or in?
No, this was off screen. This was when I literally, like, I think the first thing that we said to each other resulted in me kind of being like, oh, and then after that though, it sort of morphed into this sort of like relationship that's a little, I talk about it in the book too, it's eerily like the relationship between the Master and Chang Li in the movie. We ended up having this sort of like, he kind of took on this almost like father-like mentor role. He was like, he's trying to talk to me about the industry and about being an actor, and like we'd have these sessions where we were getting our final touches done, and we'd be sitting in our chairs, and he'd be doing these sort of like little lectures to me, like he was my dad or something like that. And it was odd, but I appreciated that. I mean, he didn't have to do that. I kind of took it at face value for, he's trying to help. But then in retrospect, when I think about it, I still to this day, I don't know if he did that in order to kind of like craft the on-screen relationship, because the on-screen relationship had that. There was this dynamic between Chang Li and the Master where it was a little bit, he tried to be a little bit paternal almost, right? And Chang Li was a bit uncomfortable with that, didn't know where to take it, but in the end, there was that they had this sort of bond going where it was kind of like a father-son kind of twisted kind of way, right? Mm-hmm. So anyway, long story short is that I didn't have bad experience working with him. I had an experience where there was that dynamic, mm-hmm. and it could have been that he sort of manufactured that, and that would be okay too because it worked out for the film. So, you know.
Yeah. And you, Daphne, what was your? I know you had to go. There were a few, not many scenes, but the ones that you did have were really.
I was. Look, you know, we had 3. I know this for a fact. We had this really great kind of chemistry, Paul and I. And so 3 weeks of that, and it was me and Paul, you know, and a little bit of Sylvester mixed in there for good measure, you know, and it was just lovely. And then, you know, 3 weeks of kind of, and this really great Canadian crew, who were professional and worked their butts off, and we'd have this kind of groovy, and we're all shooting at night, which can get weird if anybody's done the night shift, and we were really kind of, this was a smooth experience. Everything was fun and kind of groovy and kind of giggly. And then the master arrived. And it did get a little like, oh. And then he would disappear and you guys would go off and get into trouble.
Yeah.
And then he would show up again and we're like, oh, the master's here. You know? So there was definitely a different dynamic. It did change the energy on the set when he arrived. And when, again, it was perfect, you know. And then the last stuff we did shoot was in the cloister room, and we were getting killed and changed into demons and all kinds of crazy stuff going on in there, and it just sort of worked. And that was just before he was wrapped. He was wrapped before the rest of us, and so Eric would be wrapped at the end of the cloister room sequence, and then gone, and then we were left with each other, like coming back to life. Mm-hmm. I mean, it was kind of perfect.
Yeah. So I love the inside of the TARDIS in the movie. I just think it's one of the most lovely scenes.
I think it's so beautiful. That was a great set.
What was it like stepping onto the set for the first time? Was it, oh my goodness, or another set, another day?
You want me to say?
You start.
Okay. I absolutely adore it. To this day, it's just up my alley. The music, the kind of, the almost Billie Holiday kind of music, which is, I grew up on Billie Holiday, the old turntable, the tea, the books, and the wood, all of that stuff is like, if I could have a house that was like that, I would have a house like that. And so, yeah, I adore it. And I didn't know better. As far as I knew, that was always the way the TARDIS looked on the inside. You know, what do I know? So, come to find out now that I've done a little research, I've seen a little bit here and there and back and went back there, and then and so I understand that it is kind of unique to the film, you know, and I'm proud of that. It's beautiful.
Your TARDIS in our TARDIS that we've got now, especially with, I think, with the first one, Christopher Eccleston's TARDIS, you've still got that kind of lovely cathedral look that your TARDIS had. Mm-hmm. So, you know, you must be quite proud of a little bit of
There's a little influence. I think the movie did inform the new series to some degree, depending on how you look at it. But I think musically there were some things that are sort of carried over, and I think I've been told that when the TARDIS lands, and it kind of materializes, and then that's sort of, we were the first ones to kind of have that kind of technology.
Well, there was a few. Do you remember when Phil Collinson sat down with us at that convention?
Yep. You say it.
I was, and that was
that. I tell this story a lot, and I hope he doesn't mind that I paraphrase him or whatever. But Phil Collinson is one of the producers of the new series, or was. And he sat Daphne and I down in some lounge in some convention hotel somewhere.
Chicago.
Was it Chicago? Okay. And he told us. He said, you know. To make a long story short, he told us that the movie served as like this sort of jumping off point. Like when they were making the new series, they couldn't just remake the classic series the same way. They had to reinvent the Doctor. And the only way they were able to do some of the things that they did in the new series was to launch off of what the movie had done. For example, the kiss, which was like, you know, so scandalous. Maybe
y'all hated me, didn't you?
At the time that it happened, people were like,
I didn't write it. I was just there. I was just out being an actor, you know.
But in the new series, as you know, that sort of thing happens, and that was just only one out of many examples that he gave of ways that they were able to sort of innovate in the new series because that movie was there. And for Phil, he said that the movie served as like this jumping sort of this
Bridge.
this bridge.
Let's call it a bridge.
Yeah,
shall we?
Exactly, a
Yeah,
bridge,
like it.
bridge of that gap. So, so yeah, I mean, that changed my whole perception of almost as much as the 50th anniversary celebration did. That conversation
moment,
with Phil.
Well, we always felt like
changed
this.
my-
This is we've talked about that.
Yeah.
When we first started doing conventions, Yee Jee and I were like, we just snuck in the back and they're going to find out we're here and kick us out. We felt like we were really not, nobody really knows who we are, or if they do, they're kind of like, I'm not sure you're able to be here.
Yeah.
And so it was that moment where we sort of went, oh, okay, we're kind of like, okay.
Like maybe
almost legit.
we're allowed to be at these things.
Yeah.
Well, were you kind of embraced by the other companions and?
Always,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, it was
oh, they're
really
God.
yeah. No one's ever outright said like, well, you're only the master's companion for most of the movie, and you're only in the one movie, so you're not really supposed to be here. Like nobody's actually.
Oh, is
said
that what you got?
But I was saying nobody's actually said that to me. But in the back of my head for years, I was always thinking, I was really only in that one show, and like they keep inviting me to these things, but am I really supposed to be here?
Yeah,
and then
right.
it was that conversation with Phil and the 50th anniversary,
Yeah.
where it was really like, okay, thanks. I think that
Yeah, the
now,
whole canon
now
thing,
I can,
right?
Right,
Are
now
we
I can
canon,
actually sit
a
here and be
canon?
like,
And I was
okay.
like, a canon? You mean like you put a thing in and go, I don't know what a canon is. And so what's a canon? I don't know if I want to be a canon, but no. It was, I didn't really understand all that stuff at all. And then I was kind of looking at stuff online, and I stumbled into a chat room where nobody thought I would be like peeking in there. And somebody was saying some stuff, saying some, about me and whether I was canon and so. And they said something like, she's never even ridden in the TARDIS. And I was like, hold on
Wait
one
a
second.
second.
I rode in the TARDIS because I'm the one who reversed time, and
Yeah.
we were in the TARDIS
Yeah.
going back and saved the world. So
Right.
I'm the Doctor. So yeah, all
I think
right.
your credentials are good enough. I think you're all right. With
I'm a
that one.
canon.
Yeah.
Damn
yeah. Good and proper. Has anybody got any questions? Gentleman over there.
I know you.
Would you both like to bring your characters back to the show now?
Never. Yes, of course. I would love that. Actually, I was just saw Matthew Jacobs a few days ago. There was a little event at a pub in LA, and last minute he texted me and go, "Hey, are you going to this thing at the Fox and the Hounds thing?" And I was like, no. And he said, well, I'm going to go, so you should come. They were showing the movie because of the 20th anniversary. So I did go. And then we ended up in this big, long conversation where he, and I don't know if I should say this. I have such a big
You've
mouth.
started now. You've done it.
He and,
You could give us the Coles notes.
yeah, big mouth. Don't tell me anything. If you have a secret, don't tell me. Anyway, they were talking about the rights to
Okay.
these characters.
Yeah.
Philip and Matthew.
Okay.
And, they're both in LA. And so we're literally talking about finding out about, So I don't know what's going to happen, but if that were the case, then, there's some things that could sort of like come back to life.
It's funny because I've got a friend.
Say
There's a really close friend of mine who's a lawyer. She's an entertainment lawyer, and she works with a lot of the big productions that come into Canada. And she knows somebody at Fox, and she actually helped me do some research for the book. So I asked her about, I'm like, there's this thing with Daphne and I, and these rights, and blah blah blah. And she's like, I know somebody at Fox. I'm going to go and talk to them the next time I'm in LA. And she hasn't actually had a chance to see this person yet, but when she does,
It's not, Fox doesn't own us.
no, I know, but but apparently somebody there would know because they were working on the rights
Sure, they would
at the time,
they would
so
know,
they might be able to
yeah.
help us trace
That's
it.
right. Well, I think that Philip and Matthew, know who.
Really?
They know, yeah.
Maybe.
So we might see Grace and Jackie.
Wouldn't that be fun? 'Cause,
Interesting.
interesting characters.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah.
And that was the one weird thing in Paul's beautiful webisode, was when he lists all of his companions, right? But he doesn't list us because they don't have the rights to us. And we were in the movie with him, right? That was so weird, right?
Fickle time.
Yeah, I know, really.
Yeah, go on. Anybody from over this side of the room has got a question, because Keith is standing there with his... First doctor in the front, please.
Yeah, I'd just be interested, Daphne, both of you really, where would you see your characters, if they were to come back, where would you see them now?
What do you think they'll be doing? What do you think they'll be like?
Yes, you go first.
It's interesting because actually I've been in contact with a few fans that have had some pretty elaborate ideas about that, and so that's ended up sort of coloring my own sort of like thoughts about where he's gone, right? And so I mean, there's a lot of possibilities, isn't there? I can't say that there's only one. I haven't really chosen a single timeline for him yet. He's got multiple
Many lives.
There's multiple timelines that could be happening. And but one of the things that was interesting was, maybe he's involved. Maybe he's taken that gold and turned his
rich man.
Turned his life around in some way, and being involved in technology in some way, like either having invested in innovating technology or wanting to create technology that would one day lead to time travel or something like that, because he is Asian, and if
Asian child.
if Asian children are not in gangs in Chinatown, then at least they should be running a tech company. So it's off to Silicon Valley I go.
What do you think Grace would be doing now?
I really don't know. I mean, she would probably be healing somebody somehow. And so I guess initially the idea from fans and partly from me, kind of wondering what she would be doing is some kind of a holistic kind of medicine, since she's lost her license. She can't, she's not a doctor anymore of that kind. And then when I was watching the movie the other night, he says, and I'd forgotten this, he says, you'll do great things. And then she holds back death. And there was all these kinds of things that I kind of didn't, I wasn't thinking about. And so that would be kind of interesting to kind of put those two things together and see what she looks like now would be really fun. Somebody cleverer than I will have to be the writer of it. So why don't you get on that? Why don't you write that? Okay.
There's loads of questions over this side, which is marvellous.
Wow. That was the master. That was intense, right?
Yeah.
I've never heard anything like that before.
Woo! Is this one okay?
Yeah.
Yee Jee Tso, you said earlier on that you were late for the audition, but you didn't actually say why you were late for the audition, or perhaps you did and I missed it. Why were you late for the audition?
Why?
Yeah.
Well, it's this highway called the Lougheed Highway that from where I live downtown, and I needed to travel a good distance to get to this particular location. It was the studio that they used is where they held the audition, and so honestly, I was just I remember I had a 1975 Super Beetle, and it did frequently have troubles getting going. So it could very well have been a combination of me just not allocating enough time, and the car having difficulty starting and all that kind of stuff, and really bad traffic. And it was in Vancouver, because we're so far north latitude-wise in the wintertime, and the auditions were, they were in November. It gets dark quite early, so you've got rush hour at 3:30, 4 o'clock or whatever. It's like rush hour, and it's pitch black, and you're in a little 75 Volkswagen Beetle, and maybe I can't remember if it was raining, but it was not great driving conditions, and it just took me a very long time to get to set. And I remember thinking on the way there, like, I'm screwed. I'm completely fucked. I don't even know how they're not going to see me. They won't be there anymore. Like, all this negative crap was going through my head when I was on my way there. And when I finally got there and I went there and I realized that they were still there and waiting for me, I was like, okay, all I can do is just do it.
Beg for forgiveness.
Well, no, I was almost considering getting down on my knees, but I was like, no, you know what? I'm just gonna do the audition, pretend like nothing happened, because I can't. What else can I do, right? I've already screwed it up, so I just have to just do it. So that's what I did, and I think that's what it kind of came across as, maybe like I didn't care about the fact that I was late, but really I just given up all hope. And so apparently, if you're hopeless and you do an audition, you get the part. That's
right, it works. I have to tell you this. This is not about Doctor Who, but I have to say this really fast. This, because I just think this was amazing. You guys know who Christopher Guest is? Mm-hmm. Okay, right? Don't we all love him? Yeah. He's brilliant, right?
Yes.
He was, this was back when he was just doing his movies, right? And he still is, obviously. But he was doing a movie, and I had just given birth to my daughter. So she was really young, and she was sick. And she was up all night long, and I was up all night with her, and then passed out, when the sun was rising, and she finally fell asleep. And I had a meeting with Christopher Guest.
Oh my gosh.
And the phone rings, and I'm up all night looking. I had not cleaned up. I was not ready in any way. Hello. My manager's like, where are you?
Oh no. I hate that
Oh
feeling.
my God. I'm never late. I'm never late. I mean, I go early so that I'm not late, because I hate being late. And I mean, I almost threw up. I was like, oh my God, oh my God. She's like, Christopher Guest is waiting for you. Oh my God. She's like, let me call them and see what I can do. I have to get in the shower. Go get in the shower. I'm going to call. So she did. I'm getting nervous just talking about this. And so she called him. She explained the situation. And they were like, don't worry about it. We'll be here.
Oh, that's nice.
I got in the shower, I did my hair, I got dressed, I got in the car, I drove all the way to Beverly Hills. I get there, I get out, I run in, and they're sitting there and they're laughing and having a grand time and having a coffee, and they didn't even care. They didn't even care. I mean, they cared, but they knew why, and they were just lovely.
Oh,
So yeah,
that is great. Wow.
lucky. Oh my God! And I still didn't get the job because the show went away. But he did like me. He was lovely, and I would kill to work with him. Wouldn't that be nice?
You obviously made an impression. Doctor Who, as you know, in this country is massive. I mean, there's a big family. We're one big family and stuff like that. And it's science fiction. Is there anything? You've both been involved in other science fiction shows over on the other side. How does fandom here and Doctor Who fans in particular compare with fandom experience that you've had with the other shows that you've done? I mean, are we a bit more reserved or?
I can talk to. I can definitely speak to this because I did an episode in Deep Space Nine.
Yeah.
So I've been to convention Trekkies, and I've been to those, and I've even done some other science fiction, and I've never. There aren't cons for those. I mean, I don't know if you guys know Sleepwalkers, which was actually shot in Vancouver. Emily Watson. And Bruce Greenwood. Were in that, and that had legs. It was really excellent. Structure to it. It was about going into people's dreams to help them fix their lives. They're troubled and they have these repeating nightmares, and you go in and you fix and you can. And so then they would launch people. They were in pods. It was very Matrix-ish. You kind of plug in and shoot up with something, and then you can go into their dreams. And it was awesome. And it was some of the weirdest stuff I've ever shot. I was birthed out of a man's liver.
Oh man.
On a pool table outside at night in the rain, under an overpass in Vancouver.
That is weird.
I did have to have a shot of vodka before I did that. But yeah, no. It was really weird. And I was also in a 40s style outfit dress and with 40s music going, which was very strange. And wandering through all these very weird, because we were in a dream. So sky was the limit. It was really a great idea. And it did run for one season, I think, only. But what was the point? What did you ask me?
What do fans like?
Okay, sorry. I'm so bad. I have to say that the Trekkie conventions, it's not the fans' fault, because it's just, they're so huge that it's less personal. You know what I mean? It's just like there are masses of people, and it's not usually only Trekkies. It's the Trekkies and the other, this and that and that other, and so there's all these different people, hundreds of thousands of people, all in the same place at the same time, and so it's just less personal. And so having done things like this, where it's way more personal, you can actually like make eye contact and you remember people and you have relationships. I remember you from, and you, where are you? You, I remember you. I just, it's more personal and it's more like family. I do find that the Doctor Who, and I'm going to sound like I'm totally like sucking up to you guys, but I really mean this. So many intelligent Doctor Who fans. I mean, like really intelligent people. like scary. Like I'm like, what? I can't even have a conversation with you. You're like rocket science. But so yeah, I do find that, and you guys just make me feel so much. I just feel really honored, and so I'm often crying at these things, going, "Thank you," but it's true. I mean, it's genuine. I'm just gross. Yeah. So yeah.
And you did Stargate.
Yep.
What are the fans of that? I don't follow that. I'm very bad.
Yeah, I don't know. I did a few episodes of Stargate Atlantis. I was on Stargate, and I did like some stuff on like Battlestar Galactica and a bunch just the sci-fi shows that come to Vancouver, right? And Sliders. But to be honest, I haven't actually gone to many conventions that do. I think there was one convention, it might have been here at the NEC actually, where they had fans from those shows, but I was brought for Doctor Who, but the fans from those shows also came and got signatures and stuff like that. And so that's probably about all of the exposure I've had to the fan bases from those ones. And it's, I mean, I can't say, I don't know, the Doctor Who scene seems to be, A, like Daphne said, a more sort of like a close-knit family kind of thing, more like a community. And B, they seem to be very dedicated. Not that Trekkies aren't dedicated in that, you know, they would get in the costume and all that kind of stuff, but it seems like Doctor Who fans, a lot of them, have made it like a lifestyle.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's not just get dressed when you go to the con and then, you know, whatever. It's like, I'm a Whovian. Kind of thing. And I don't mean that in any, you know, I consider myself a Whovian now, especially I've been to enough conventions, I could probably give myself a little stamp of Whovian. You know, and
I'm going to get a tattoo right now.
And so, that's...
Yeah. And did you think, say, 20 years ago, when you that first day on set, when it was like action, did you ever cross your mind that 20 years later you would still be sitting here talking about that one job that you had?
No way.
No
way. No way. I mean, because it doesn't happen on anything else. I mean,
exactly. It doesn't happen on
even on
anything
Star
else.
Trek, you know, a little here and a little there, but no, I mean, it's just I had to learn how to do this. You know, I had to go back and recall. The book helped writing that because I really had to remember, and I, you know, and then I've seen it since a few times, and that helps. But it's seeing you again and remembering that way, and your perspective helps inform mine. And same with Paul and Sylv, and you know, I mean, it's just it's fascinating and it really is. I mean, it's just a gift because I mean, outside of the film and getting to see you, and I adore this man. This is the most amazing guy. I mean, no, I'm not kidding. I mean, I just love you. And but I've fallen in love with Wendy Padbury and Katie Manning and you know Peter Purvis, right? And I mean, all these different people that I've met along the way. Mr. Franklin and Nicola Bryant. I mean, it just goes on. And see, there he is. We'll always have Australia.
What are you doing?
I came to see you. And so yeah, no, you just fall in love. I mean, these guys open their hearts and their arms and have brought us in, and they're also wonderful actors, so I respect them so much, and beautiful personalities, and they make me laugh, and they laugh at my stupid jokes, and you make me cry, and we travel the world. We went all over Australia together. He was one of the few people that didn't get sick while we were there. We all fell, all of us. Wendy got sick, I got sick, Charlie got sick. Charlie Hayes, Ryan, I love these people. So, yeah, it's just nothing but a gift.
Excellent.
Yes, sorry.
That's all right. No, you go on, love. Fine.
I can't shut up.
Yes. Yeah.
I was going to ask Yee Jee Tso, Battlestar Galactica, you were in the episode Final Cut playing Lucy Lawless's assistant. Can you talk a bit about that?
I mean, it was a small part, and I was just there for the day, basically. But I still hear about it. People still mention, and it's funny. Okay, so the one story I do have about, and it was neat working with Lucy Lawless, and you know, that was being on that set was kind of a neat experience because it was one of those shows that became rather iconic, and it was sort of central to Vancouver's
sort of sci-fi-ness or whatever. But one of the leads on that show, Tomo Pennicott, he and I went to the same acting school, and I had made I've made a couple little sort of self-produced short films before or whatever, but one of the ones that we made had Tomo in it, and his character. His character didn't have any lines, but he was the only character that was alive. Everybody else was actually dead. I've given away the plot, but you'll probably never watch it. So, anyways, every character, yeah, total spoiler. Now there's no point to watch it. Actually, even if you find it somewhere, there's no point because now you know the whole thing. Everyone's dead except for Tomo. So that was kind of neat when I realized that he was on that show, and I didn't actually see him on set that day, but there you go. That's a Battlestar story.
So weird that you've done like 3 or 4 different sci-fi things. And I did a weird thing called Intruders, which was like a mini-series about being abducted by aliens and stuff, and giving birth to alien babies, which I did. Hello. Yeah. And then that Sleepwalkers thing, and I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
It's sort of like, it just kind of happens.
Yeah, I mean, is it the way that American television goes that you have this lot of pilots and then series get cancelled after one season and something else is the flavour of the month, and it seems to be very strange how they do their television over there. Nothing ever seems to be given the chance to grow. If it doesn't work, that's it.
Do you find that
I don't love the pilot model personally.
Well, it used to be that you did a pilot, they would air the pilot, and they actually would try to get some traction. If it doesn't get great ratings on the day, then they would maybe buy 7 episodes, 9 episodes, maybe 13 episodes, and try to let it come to life and find its audience, and let the audience find it. And that was the olden times. And then it became, you make the pilot. If you can't get the right numbers from the audiences you show it to in those little like experimental rooms, then you maybe ditch it. Maybe you just air it as a movie of the week and call it a day, but you don't waste any time or effort. And then now you have 100,000 channels. And you've got 100,000 channels that do their own series, and now you've got Netflix doing their own stuff, and TNT doing their own stuff, and the Women's Channel doing their own stuff, and so there's actually a lot of real estate to kind of, and so it's up to those little places, and there'll be the kid like TNT, I think that, and Netflix, they'll do their own little thing, and then maybe if they're still behind it, it's almost like they're the up shots, like in the olden days, where they'll find that, they'll work that one piece because they believe in it. And so, but then you've got the masses and the actual 4 big networks, where and then some, where they're not going to waste their time. No. So it's on and it's off. But I have to say this about you guys. I gotta say this. Like that Silk show, and then what was the M16 or M15? What was that one? Spooks. Oh, love it. Okay, but they killed everybody. Every time I turned around, there was somebody else. One of the main characters was dead again, and I was like, what? And it kept on hurting me. And then I was like, you know what? It's that Doctor Who. It's that Doctor Who, because they lose their doctors, they lose their companions, they just keep on, whatever, next one, let's go, you're done. And so you guys are better at kind of going.
But then on Walking Dead.
I don't watch that.
I mean,
are they killing a bunch of people in that?
Every single one tonight.
I haven't seen that.
I mean, who Negan's killed, I don't know.
So they're taking after you guys. So you guys started this.
Well, there's the Game of Thrones thing too, where everybody's left, right,
Game of Thrones.
Like first season of that was just so, I was like,
kills me. Yeah, we were all crying.
I can't watch it anymore.
What?
One question in the back. John.
Hiya. You say that, I didn't know this, Paul was given a 7-year contract, so they was obviously confident. What actually happened for him to sort of say, we're not going ahead anymore? Because over here it's really successful, and I loved it myself, but what happened?
Thank you. What actually happened, and I just found this out, it was back in the 50th anniversary year, I went to BFI. Actually, it was just before the BFI thing, but I repeated it at BFI, and it turns out the BBC guy who told me that was in the audience. He's like, I said that.
Was it
this
not
is
a
me.
secret?
Yeah.
And then the thing was, it was Sliders. It didn't have anything to do with the American audience not having tuned in that night or something. I mean, I know that they had aired their show in the States opposite a final basketball game and also the final episode of Roseanne, which was huge over there.
Yeah.
It was the episode where Dan has a heart attack, so everybody was, and so it was almost like a coin flip. They went Sliders, another season for Sliders. And that is why Doctor Who did not get, that right there is why. Yeah, interesting, right?
So it was the timing of it. If they had invested a year in Doctor Who and then had to flip the coin for Sliders, it might have gone the other way around.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
that was
it's
from
funny.
a BBC guy.
I was
who
having a
there.
conversation with my agent about that fairly recently, about how a lot of the times the casting situation comes down to something like a coin toss. You know, there'll be this situation where there'll be like a panel of 7 executives that have to decide on which lead person to put into this, which actor to use for this role. And, you know, like half of them will want this actor and half of them will want that actor. And so at the end of the day, instead of letting the other half win, they'll coin toss on a third actor that nobody ever really wanted, but they were just like, just get that person in there because it doesn't cause a fight between everybody. And then so it's these random things. Or it's like, you know, somebody looks like one of the producer's ex-wife or something like that, and they're automatically just off the slate. You know, I mean, it's
I didn't like her.
Yeah,
I don't
it's just
like her.
dumb things like that happen sometimes, right? Like,
Yeah, sure.
That's sad.
So
It's that's the nature of the
the
business.
business. It's
You
the
have to
business.
be ready to be
Yeah.
unemployed
yeah,
and not take it too personally.
yeah, you can't take it personally.
No. Well, the nature of the business is that I'm onto a timetable. I've been told by that.
Come
guy
on,
over there.
stop it,
We've gotta
you!
go, we've
We're
gotta
doing
go.
stuff
We're in the
here.
middle of something over here.
So,
Gary.
massive big round of applause for our 2 lovely guests.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.